I remember being on a plane once with Eddie Murphy,
Mm.
20 years ago. To me, he was a gigantic star.
Yeah.
And I didn't know him. I don't think I watched Saturday Night Live very often. After I was on it a couple of times, I figured, I'm not going to watch anything else. They were the best cast anyway. Anyway, he said, I need a hit, man. I said, what do you mean? What have you done for me lately? They said, he had two flops in a row. What is a flop? I don't know, but I didn't make money. So the life of an actor is a pure actor is a little precarious. That is to keep working. So I never had that problem. I did every field of show business.
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Were you guys like, I mean, because I know that sense of humor around that area, you know what I mean? Were you all kind of funny at the time? Were you the only funny one?
No, I was the clown. I was always the class clown. Wonderful title for one of George's albums.
Yeah.
That the first two albums, we vied for the Grammy for Best Comedy. He came in first both times. They were great. My father was very funny. He was a textile salesman. Did not make a great living, but he was hilarious. But he never had the cannolis to go into show business. It was unheard of. When I started, comedian wasn't a profession as such.
Right.
Talking about, nobody knew comedians except on television. I saw live comedy in the Catskill Mountains, and I saw great comedy on television.
Do you remember the first comic you saw in the Catskills?
There were three that stand out in my mind. I saw when I was a lifeguard and a busboy. Larry Deutsch, Bernie Burns, Lou Menchel. I'll tell you, the two bald-headed men in the first row, you put your heads together, you make an ass of yourself. But seriously, the thing is, they would come to the, small hotels. Later, when I got a reputation, I played the Concord and Grossingers and Kutchers, big, they had Barbra Streisand and Bill Cosby. Come on, give the guy a break. It's only he said, she 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 said. He said, the Daily News stole that line. I had been doing it. Roland, then they put it on the Daily News.
Oh,
Daily News newspaper stole my line.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, the big time, that was different. But in these small places, the comedian would show up. If he had music, he'd give it to the band, who were medical students working for the summer. And, he'd have people screaming for 35 minutes or 40 minutes. And for that time, they forgot their troubles with their health or their children, their disappointment in their marriage.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, what a great way to make a living. Poveromo, what do you think of that? You're a comedian.
I completely agree.
Laugh is a high calling.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, too, it's kind of funny because no matter what ailments we have, if we're on stage for that 45 minutes under that light, nothing hurts us. Nothing bothers us. You're on. It's great. It's cathartic for you, too.
You know what? That's 90-something% true. When I was going through a terrible divorce over 30 years ago, I had to go to work. And, everyone has to go to work if they're going through a terrible divorce. Mine has to be making people laugh. But it is true that not only that, but physical injury. I cracked my radial head fracture playing tennis the day before a gig in Fort Lauderdale, a big theater in the Round.
Wow.
I didn't feel the pain when I was on. I was in a sling.
Right.
After I had shoulder surgery once, it sounds like my sister called these organ. When you get old, you have organ recitals. Everyone talks about I'm very fortunate. I was in the hospital once for like an emergency appendectomy.
Right.
But anyway, that's when I saw live comedy, and I thought that's really wonderful. Their stuff wasn't deep, but I guess my eyes really opened when I heard, and I saw a little of him on television, Lenny Bruce, because he had been pretty conventional.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, he hipped up maybe a little bit of it was Joe Ancis, but, Rodney's friend.
Yeah.
There's always those rumors about that. I knew Joe very well.
Mm-hmm.
Al Goldman, who wrote a book about Lenny Bruce, he said, "Will the real Lenny Bruce?" An article in New York Magazine. And, he was hilarious, Joe, but for 4 people.
Right.
He couldn't go on a stage.
Right.
But he and Lenny were close in the old days. And, jazz types, and actually Joe Ancis loved opera too, but he was amazing because he was a social commentator. And the other one I think that I admired most, and totally different, well, not totally, was Jonathan Winters.
Oh, yeah.
Because he wasn't political,
Mm-hmm.
but he was a one-man show, as Lenny was. Voices, movement, moving your body, moving
Yeah.
not a list of Joe. He was a total entertainer.
Right.
And the combination of them was, I missed Lenny. I got to California a year after he died. So I never met him, but I heard a lot of him from Rodney. But I did have, luckily, a bit of a correspondence and some meetings with Jonathan in the last few years of his life. And my buddy Dan Pasternak, who you probably know, everyone knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on the show recently.
He's a wonderful guy. And he asked me to speak at Jonathan's memorial, and that was great. And, his daughter knows I love airplanes. He had them all over his bedroom like I do.
Oh, nice.
I got one of his airplanes, a few of his airplane ties. And he was, excuse me, he was amazing,
Right.
And we never missed him when we knew he'd be on.
We had Dan Pasternak on, but we also had Paul Provenza on, who's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, they have a new show too. I did a theme song for them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's obsessive. By the way, it's obsessive
comedy disorder.
I mean, dystopia. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
I refreshed myself on the definition. It's it's unfortunately rather. I saw your opening too.
Yeah.
Very good. Gosh.
Thank you.
I'm afraid things are quite dystopic now. I'm not at all pleased.
I completely agree. It's insane to me that it's 20. I mean, I love talking about this kind of stuff anyway, but it's insane to me that it's 2022 and now the Roe v. Wade thing is in danger again and all that stuff's coming up. And it's just sickening that it's this cyclical. And I feel like, we're all kind of trapped in the middle here.
Well, I'm a student of American history, although I majored in history and political science in college. My education in history was so superficial and actually ridiculous. But I've been the last number of years reading a lot about American history right up to the current time. And there's always been a certain amount of bad blood. I mean, even George Washington, who was above it, supposedly, was castigated by enemies in the press towards the end of his administration. But there was a certain comity based on the delicate balance of the democracy, which was tested mightily in the Civil War. And that's the thing that I was so ignorant about. The Reconstruction period. All these stats, I never knew until last year, 2 years ago, that Fort Bragg, where every new troop goes on the East Coast, is named after a Confederate general.
Yeah.
These traitors, Traitors. And everyone called them traitors after the Civil War. Had Lincoln not been assassinated, he was very accommodating, wanted to heal the wounds. These statues and all these Confederate things are in the 1890s and 1920s.
Right.
1826, 6 million Klansmen marched in Washington. Woodrow Wilson was a sort of heroic figure in my eyes because of his illness and trying to form the League of Nations. It's a racist bum.
Right.
To that war.
I know.
Early. So, right now I'm very concerned because it's based on faith that if candidate A wins and candidate B loses and people don't acknowledge it, you're lost. Because there are millions of people walking around now who think that the election was fixed when nothing could be farther from the truth.
Right.
He was thankful that Trump did not have Hitler's chops, but it amazed me how easy it was for many people to follow him and worship him. This rather, this huckster, this who had to pay millions in fines for shitty universities and shitty products and fraudulent schemes with banks. That's what he specialized in. And it goes right to the vote counting itself, which is being taken over in a partisan way. So I really am. I just turned 80 years old. So
happy birthday!
Thank you very much. What I'm saying is, I would read the New York Times fervently every morning, and as complete as possible. And now I really pick and choose articles. I escape to better times like World War I and II. I'm serious.
I believe you. Yeah, I know what you mean.
At least they were. We should learn. You'd be amazed. I just finished a book called The Daughters of Yalta, the last conference that Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill had it. And not Stalin, but Churchill and Roosevelt brought their daughters. And Avril Harriman, who was the ambassador to Russia at the time, and who was, a multi-billionaire, and State Park up here, around here, and he was governor of New York. He brought his daughter. Anyway, how these same names of places, these same military dynamics are repeating themselves today.
Right.
That's very disconcerting.
It is.
You mentioned, and I'm going to shut up in a second because you guys are interesting too. I'm more interested. You mentioned Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
Apparently, no one denies that states will be able to allow abortion, which is the saving grace. This does not help all of the poor people who can't travel and all that. I just think that it's sort of barbaric, especially the cases of rape and incest.
Right.
And incest. Like one of these senators, some murderous rapist impregnates his daughter, and they're going to make her carry to term and all the, thing. And anyway, when you talk about innocent fetuses, one of these Southern yokels who was a congressman who happens to be a doctor, there's unfortunately a lot of them.
Yeah.
We're short of doctors. We have too many congressmen. And he said, oh, they're viable very early. They're viable. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing, but they're viable early. Why? As early as just 8 weeks. We see a male, for example. We could see a little male baby pleasuring himself. You want to talk to me about innocent fetuses and jerking off?
Right.
Anyway, that's why certain babies are born blind. But seriously, I mean, really, I somebody took a jar with a fetus in it, to a TV show. Would you do that with a grown human being? Everyone's worried about fetuses. We're worried about fetuses. How about if we call them, when they're born, we don't give a shit about them. The way their meals, when they can't, their parents are, meth addicts and they don't have enough to eat.
Sure.
So if we called them post fetuses,
right,
would we make more headway?
You probably would, but as long as those post fetuses aren't black, gay, trans, bisexual, as long as they're not any of those things, they'll give a shit about them.
Well, they're terrified. The fact is that, I mean, the list is endless. The trial of Oscar Wilde is heartbreaking. This brilliant man,
Mm.
the guy that invented the computer, the Englishman. It was illegal homosexuality in
Yeah.
1947 or 8,
Oh,
whatever.
yes. I can't think
Well,
of his
maybe
name.
no, wait, later than that.
Yeah.
You can get a death in certain places for it,
Sure.
and this pretense that it's some choice. Let's
Right.
see. I should I be gay? I'll be neater if I'm gay, or I'll play better. I'll throw better a baseball if I'm straight. I mean, every one of these hypocrites has a cousin who
Oh, yeah.
married and lives in terror of
Yeah.
being out. So
Or they themselves, for the most part.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful that, I mean, if you believe in God, I am definitely, the jury's out for me.
Yeah.
But he created these people. But Michelangelo, bad person.
I know, right? Yeah. And
Um,
like some of these Republicans need is a bathroom stall and some good hamstrings. You know what I mean? And then they'll figure out if they're
oh yeah, that
That's
guy.
it.
I had a bit about him, and I have to start remembering my bits again because I'm gonna start working soon.
I can't wait, man.
First time in over 2 years.
Nice.
What's his name? Larry.
Oh
He's
yeah.
senator from Idaho.
Yeah.
He was an anti-gay guy, and I mean, he wanted an amendment to the Constitution of Idaho.
Right.
He was caught in the men's room at Minneapolis Airport with
Right.
his foot extending under, unfortunately for him, a deputy sheriff. I mean, this guy wants to have sex.
Right.
For privacy and comfort. This guy wants to have sex in the one place I want to get out of as quickly as possible, an airport men's room.
Yes.
Take a leak in LaGuardia, you need galoshes. Okay?
Right.
I mean, hair and shit, and they put they blow their nose and put it in the urinal.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
That's the real reason they don't want to have any trans people in the men's bathroom, is they want to make sure when they're putting that foot under there, it's a man they're getting and not anybody else.
That's true.
That's the real reason. It is kind of, you know what the craziest thing to me is too, and I feel bad, we can get off politics in a second, but the craziest thing to me is that people kind of get surprised by the fact that this is reoccurring again. And it's like, because I've seen celebrities, like, since this has been announced, going like, this is the time to remember to vote. And it's like, dude, I don't know if you noticed, but we did vote and our guy won. And this is still happening. It's not like there was it's not like the Republicans just were quietly doing this. They were really vocal about it. And our side dropped the ball. And it's like, what are you waiting for? Gal Gadot to sing Imagine again? Like, what the fuck are you guys waiting for to do? It's
I think
really
you have
frustrating.
a very good point.
I do what I can. Nobody's listening, but I do what I can.
I used to be a cigarette smoker.
Hmm.
So I have chronic bronchitis. It happens to be acting
Oh.
a little. So I'm not sick, or it's just I'm going to die shortly.
Don't say that.
So you bring a good point. The good things that happen from progressive thinking are. I mean, ask these people. Do you want to lose Social Security when it came? Oh my God, communism, Social
Right.
Security, Medicare. Oh my God, communism. Oh, seatbelt. Oh my God, it's a nanny world.
Right.
I mean, look, the ultimate was now with this disease.
Yeah.
People
Absolutely.
on each other, thinking, right, the Lord will protect me, or it's a hoax. They're injecting us so that we'll be, they can control our minds. Look.
Yeah.
The legislators who are doing this damage are behind the people they're representing.
Mm-hmm.
The overwhelming majority of Americans believe in the right to abortion.
Right.
The majority of Americans want to leave gay people and other people alone.
Right.
And here they are going into the libraries, the ignorance of it. It's just heartbreaking to take, these wonderful books out because of one of line and all that. But I do not hold with what some comedians say, that everything is so censored, politically correct, and all that. You know what? I have one of my HBO specials. I was talking about the Cleveland Indians, or the and the Braves and everything changing the Redskins
Yeah.
changing. It's offensive. Wake up. You know,
Right.
I mean, you slaughtered these people, and you're forbidding it to be spoken about in classrooms. Oh, nothing bad about America. The Capitol was built by slaves. You have to see a movie like 10 Years a Slave.
Right.
If that brings it home to people, that what it was like to be owned by someone else, to have no freedom, to have your children sold, for you to be a chattel slave. It started, South Carolina almost prevented America from starting because of their horrible attitude during the Constitutional Convention. And there they were the first to, and now you have Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
The whole Confederacy sucks. And it's not only
Yeah.
the Confederacy, and there's a lot of good people living there, and I don't know how they do in that atmosphere. But, people don't want to be bothered. Nobody knows civics. Nobody knows how the government runs.
Right.
These people talk about 1776 and this and that. And when you have people, those criminals who overran the
Capitol.
overran the Capitol and tried to interfere in the counting of the votes, and no cops were there. I mean, these Black Lives Matter and all these others, there were millions of cops. Yeah, there was some breaking windows. These guys were breaking the Capitol with no cops.
Right, exactly. The cops were letting them in. Well,
Trump was the president, and he approves. And we've heard elected officials who are supposed to be respectable members of this society and American citizens saying these are just victims. It was a red flag operation. So that's like book burning in Nazi Germany. Yeah. Like Stalin was just the worst. It's funny. This kind of book was a beauty. When they come out of a long meeting, Roosevelt wheels out and Churchill comes out and Stalin comes out running because he has to take a piss. And the ambassador, Averell Harriman, shows him the nearest lavatory was a sink because the Soviets took this old building that had been bombed. Anyway.
Right.
Black is white, up is down. It's a little scary.
It is, absolutely. And it goes back to like, I mean, I can tie it back into the comedy thing, which I appreciate because this is kind of what we're trying to do here too with the dystopia. I like, that intro is kind of everything that's going on in the world and what's going on in my head. And then I feel like, we get to kind of talk about it here, break it down, and then shift to whatever the hell we want to. Same thing as doing, comedy on stage for about an hour and whatever. You get to kind of escape it, make fun of it, make light of it. And then you get to go back right out into the world and suffer through it.
Well, I began, while I was still before the pandemic. Trump wasn't funny anymore. I mean,
right.
Saturday Night Live did a good job. When I was doing a couple of episodes of Will and Grace, I worked with Alec Baldwin in one of them.
Yeah.
Before the shooting. You think he killed her? I mean, whatever you think about Baldwin, and everyone doesn't think good things about him. But I remember telling him, what you're doing on Saturday Night Live, if you did it in Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, Hungary, you'd be in jail.
Absolutely. And the fucked up thing is Trump wanted him in jail for it. I mean, how many times did he try to sue SNL?
Yeah, I mean, it's beyond, and
comprehend,
crass and untruthful, and his children are carbon copies, and just wonderful not to have to see him on the screen every night. And I don't know what the Elon Musk thing is going to mean. I don't like the signals he's putting out. I don't like one person owning something.
Me neither. It's really messed up. That's the craziest thing. That's another scary element to it, is that people I think are just starting to realize how much billionaires, or these guys that are even close to like being a trillionaire situation, actually run our lives. What is it, like 5 richest people in the world, and they own like sections of the country? And these, like, for one billionaire, for Elon Musk to run an entire social media network and then privatize it, people should be terrified by that, just because, I mean, his whole freedom of speech thing has nothing to do with freedom. Everybody did have the freedom to talk on Twitter, and they had some guidelines and some rules that you had to follow. But for the most part, people said whatever the fuck they wanted to say, true or not. Well, you just couldn't incite violence, I think, was one of the main things.
Also, I think COVID misinformation.
Yes, COVID misinformation as well. I wish they would have taken, but even then, it took a long time for them to get that shit together and get it off there, and they needed to. So, I mean, it was
the bottom line is everything. Not since Teddy Roosevelt trust busting, which was the really first instance of the government grossly interfering in private industry because monopolies was so powerful.
Yeah.
What's the stat? 40 years ago, the average CEO made, I don't know, 18, 20 times more than
right.
Now it's 1,000 times more.
Yeah.
And golden parachutes. I remember my friend Michael Fuchs, who had a lot to do with, I was the first HBO performer and I did
right.
And it was primitive then. They didn't have a lot of subscribers and he really made it grow. He was eventually fired by Levin, his superior, felt he was creeping up on. He really wanted to be president of the company. He would have been a great president. Levin
turned
out to be disastrous. He combined with AOL and HBO and Time Warner lost a lot of their pension.
Right.
He got a golden parachute. He got fired and he was angry and I don't know how many millions. So they all have a game going like that.
Yes, it is. And we're all caught in the middle and it's insanity. What did you think of, I mean, I'm assuming you kind of watched that Oscars or were forced to watch the Oscars with the slap. I mean, that was interesting to me for a couple reasons. One reason, because liberals we spent 4 years talking about the rhetoric, the violent rhetoric of the Trump administration, right? And the kind of precedent that was going to set. And it did set. You could see it statistically. Violence went up in protests among white people. But then to have, the 4 years of Trump finally gone, and then to see another guy, like a celebrity, supposedly, we don't know if he's left-leaning or not. We can make assumptions or whatever. But to see that crew witness an assault, a physical act of violence, and no one in the room did anything, did that blow your mind? I mean, that blew me away.
Well, I don't watch the awards of any kind because I'm not in them. I don't want to see other people get awards. I usually watch how they make pencil erasers. I love Smithsonian and National Geographic.
Right.
I did see it on the news the next day.
Yeah.
It was a stunning bad thing, a stunningly bad thing to do. But I had another take on it too. It was not clear to me that he didn't know that she had alopecia. I have known several people with it, and it's very tragic. But Mike Nichols,
right,
or twice, and I kind of idolized, my early Second City. He never had any hair from the time he was 13 on. And that was before, it became fashionable to me. Now, there's things indicating that he did not know. If he knew, it was an unconscionable joke, in my opinion, and yet, I bet you guys would disagree. A lot of people disagree. You could call me a little old-fashioned in it, but I don't mind gratuitous cruelty if it's for the guy who went into the airport men's room and said, a fella could settle down here. Honey, you register the children in school. I'll be performing fellatio and a deputy sheriff. I love being cruel to that guy.
Right.
If someone had to have toilet sex by with the other person's consent, that's their business, as long as they don't hurt anybody. But gratuitous cruelty, for example, I'm a newcomer. My son, when he was 20 or 19, tried to turn me on to Family Guy.
Oh yeah.
The baby, blah blah blah, and all that. I love Family Guy. But there are times that they startle me with their tastelessness. I remember very well the day President Kennedy was assassinated. To see a bullet go in his head explode. To see an Anne Frank joke. Yes, he does Jew jokes. but he does this, black jokes and Italian jokes and everything. There's a lot of taste in this, but even then, there's a border in of so, it's just you can't censor. You censor with your pocketbook or your channel changer or whatever. But just I hate really bad taste stuff because the Holocaust obviously happened. For just take the Holocaust for example, the largest genocide in world history. And there are people that not only deny it, most people know nothing about it. It was went all over the world asking. People don't know anything about it. So Anne Frank's torment, and she wrote about it, an exemplary girl who was murdered. It was a hell of a joke. But it was, to me, too far. So if he knew that she had lost her hair through a disease, I would say it's still absolutely no excuse for him to go up there. And first of all, he laughed instantaneously. She was appalled. He looked at her. Suddenly he decided, he's going to do something. And you're right. It was a terrible, terrible thing to see in a country which was spawned in violence and continues to be violent.
Right. Yeah, it was wild to me. I don't know that I think the same thing. I don't know that people have been saying that he had no idea, that it's not like a thing that was apparent, but something just came out the other day, which I found interesting. She has not been diagnosed with alopecia. So she diagnosed herself with it, which is why she wasn't taking it you know what I mean? Like she kind of just announced it on her podcast and said she had it, but
those medical things are kind of confidential.
They are, yeah. Somebody had. I read it in one of the.
I claim they have such a terrible thing.
Yeah,
my friend Christopher Reeve, poor Superman.
Yeah.
Who could be more unlucky? He fell, 3 feet from a horse and he couldn't move. He did my television show, and he had blotches coming out. And then by the time he was disabled, I used to do some shows for the foundation he founded. He was completely bald.
Wow.
And before that, a handsome guy, big clumps coming out. My old manager's daughter never grew hair past the age of 3. I mean,
it's terrible. Yeah, that's the thing. It is a terrible thing. And somebody had basically, they were just talking about it because she had pointed out all this stuff, I think, online where she had. It's a very weird thing, man. I watched it. There was a couple doctors that one of the guys has alopecia. And he's this very outspoken advocate for it. He does charity events for alopecia. He's a doctor in the field. And she had, on that video that she had like a line, I guess, on her forehead. And he was just kind of going through the whole thing. It's like, that's not what happens when you have alopecia. She clearly has all this stuff. And it's interesting because when you look him up, I mean, I don't know either way. I just find it interesting that
a guy is looking at a picture of her and saying
no, like a video that she had posted where she was showing where she had whatever, and it was like
why anyone would claim,
I don't know either. But the thing
I'd like
is
to announce right now I have syphilis. Okay,
right. I think it was. I think it was more like. I think it was more to the kind of psychotic behavior of Jada Pinkett Smith in general. She's kind of an egocentric person, and she had eyebrow surgery done recently, like an eye lift, and she didn't want anybody to know she had it done. Okay. So it was like that. So I think she didn't really look into what it was necessarily, and was like, "Yeah, I've got out." You know what I mean? Like she's nuts. You know what I mean? I think she's just nuts.
Well, I was in a movie with her, although we were not in the same scenes, but. He came to visit, shook hands with him. I don't know. It was called Reign Over Me.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, no one paid attention to it.
Mike Binder was just on a few weeks ago. He's great.
Oh, he's terrific.
Yeah, great guy.
Mike Binder, I kept an apartment in LA. I never really moved to the West Coast. I used to keep an apartment when I used to do the Tonight Show a lot. And I guest hosted for Johnny and so forth. One day I'm driving home and I realize somebody's following me, and it's a cul-de-sac where my garage is for the apartment building. And I I was an idiot because I sort of just I got out, slammed the door,
Mm.
and looked tough and said, "What the fuck are you? Are you following me?" And I didn't say what. I said, "Are you following me?" When I know, I'm sorry, Robert. My name is Mike Binder. I'm a comedian.
Oh my God, that's
I
great.
love the way it worked, and it was a wonderful movie. And Adam Sandler was brilliant in it, but no one paid because he wasn't being an idiot in the movie.
Yeah, it was a beautiful movie. Don Cheadle was great in it. You were great in it.
Yeah.
Can I tell you another movie that I love of yours that I don't know that it got the proper attention? A Nora Ephron film, Mixed Nuts. One of my favorite Christmas movies ever.
Yeah, it was Madeline. Madeline Kahn was one of my two best earliest friends in show business, both dead. Madeline Kahn and Peter Boyle. Yeah. Madeline I knew from when her mother was a voice teacher living in Queens. We were really platonic, except maybe a couple of times. The great sexual revolution of the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. Oh, what a revolution. So much more fun than the Bolshevik or French Revolution. And it was so much safer. It was before AIDS.
Yeah.
And it was just, birth control pills were as ubiquitous in a woman's purse as car keys and no AIDS. Remember the good old days of syphilis and gonorrhea?
I dream about those. I didn't get to experience it, but I would like to go back.
So I was Madeline Kahn's romantic interest in that one. It wasn't a very big part. It was fun, and it took them forever. Steve Martin was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept on getting paid tons of money because they were over schedule out in Venice Beach.
Wow.
And they left all this equipment and the boardwalk with security people. We also, the last time I saw her, unfortunately, she didn't tell me she was sick. And I did Cosby's show as a romantic interest for her.
Wow.
And the costumer said, I was supposed to be a cop staking out. And he said, "We have a leather jacket." He said, No. I want you to get him. This is Cosby talking.
Mm-hmm.
A Nautica, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they got me this $700 leather jacket, which I have in the closet.
Wow.
I just found pictures with him, with Harvey Weinstein, with Andrew Cuomo. I mean, I have a gallery. You know that someone, well, I can say it because she was public about it. Janice Dickinson used to be a supermodel.
Yeah.
And I used to go with her sister Debbie, who was slightly less supermodel, but beautiful. Janice had the bigger career, but I loved Janice. Was fun, and she was carefree and irresponsible. But anyway, she told me 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, she said, "Son of a bitch tried to drug me, and blah, 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 got away." Well, that's not what she said afterwards. She did not get away. She was one of his many victims.
Wow.
I'm not sure I liked him. He did the sitcom. He came in like the last day.
Jeez.
And I was, I had a few contacts with him. I didn't find him really cordial. On that show, he was nice.
Right.
But I knew Harvey. I did a picture with Pacino for him called People I Know. Very good movie. He produced the documentary about me. Robert Klein Still Can't Stop His Leg.
Yeah, I didn't know he produced that.
Yeah.
It was a Weinstein thing, and it's in litigation. I think it may be on Starz app. I know it was on Starz.
Okay.
Marshall Fine directed it. I'm so proud of it. I mean, I didn't put it together, but it's certainly flattering, and got all these guys. Oh, well, Pasternak also arranged my birthday tape, February 8th, with Seinfeld wishing me happy birthday, Leno.
Nice.
Richard Lewis. Lucy Arnaz, of course. We were on Broadway together years ago. And I'm probably leaving out a few. Paul Provenza.
Yeah.
Mad About You, Paul Reiser.
Paul Reiser. Nice.
A good guy. I never spoke to him. Even when I did his show, I never had we had like an hour phone call when I called up to thank him. He has a disabled child, and he's a really mensch. He's a real mensch. He's a good
Yeah.
guy.
He seems like I've never gotten a chance to meet him, but I've loved him for years, man. I always thought his stand up was super funny, and that show Mad About You was great, and you were great on it. And then his books, man, he's a good writer.
Yes, peoplehood and parenthood and that kind of stuff. Yeah, he's a bright guy, and I just really enjoyed talking to him.
Those guys consider you their godfather of comedy, by the way. Do you take
Bill
that?
Maher, in the documentary, Bill Maher says that when he heard Child of the 50s, the first album in 73, this is Mind Over Matter, the next year, 74, and the one you're showing on screen.
Right.
He said he copied down my words to see what they looked like on the printed page. I think what it was best summed up by Leno in that movie. I had a great conversation with too. He's a goofy. I mean, goofy. I mean, he's got $1 trillion.
Right.
He's married to Mavis for many, many years. I knew him. There's a picture here of us at the Improv, me,
right.
The torch to him, and all that.
Yeah.
But he summed it up best. Why guys like him sort of took special notice of what I did. Leno in the documentary says, when you're a kid in Western Massachusetts and you're interested in comedy, people commiserate with your mother. Is he still into that comedy thing? Did you have that, John?
Yes, absolutely.
You could look at Robert Klein. He went to college.
Yep.
Normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have discouragement?
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. And backhanded discouragement, which is like, why don't you try doing literally anything else? And you're like, no, I'm doing well. I enjoy this. Really? You don't want to, you're going to look like this for the rest of your life? You're just going to.
What your parents did they have professions?
My stepdad was the chief of state police for years until he passed away a couple of years ago. In New Jersey, yeah, in New Jersey, chief of state, and he was, but he had a military career. He was, he was in the Vietnam War and stuff, and then he became a cop. And my mom ran Island Beach State Park, which I don't know if you've ever been to before, but she worked in the office at Island Beach State Park, had like 150 employees underneath there and stuff. She did that for years, but they were supportive of me doing stand up. I think my extended, my dad's family didn't quite understand why I was talking about the family. They're all from Brooklyn, and they found it somewhat offensive in the beginning. They were like, what do you got to bring that up for? You know what I mean? Like that kind of an attitude. I was like, but it's funny, like people are laughing at it. They get it. And they didn't like that because they were like, mock mob. You know what I mean? They were like, you don't talk about the family. And I'm like, but be honest, you guys are nobodies.
You mentioned your stepfather, and then you have a father, right?
I do have a father, yeah.
Who was my favorite character in his whole family, Robert. Ask him about it.
Yeah, he's an interesting. I've talked about him a little bit briefly before, but he's kind of where I kind of get my gregarious kind of nature, because everybody knew him. He was kind of a con artist, and he's 74 now, so he's not doing shit. He's in a nursing facility at the moment.
What's a con artist mean?
I'll give you an example. He needed $500 and he saw a cement truck on 40th Street. He climbed up one side and down the other and wound up talking to the neighbor of the guy who was getting his cement filled in. And the guy was like, could you do mine? He was like, yeah, my partner and I will do it. I just need $500. As soon as we're done with his, we'll do yours. He goes, great. He gives him 500. My dad takes off. And then at the end of the whole thing, the guy's packing up his shit and he goes, I thought you were going to do my front yard. And he goes, I never said that. And he goes, I just gave your partner $500. He's like, I don't have a partner. And that was it. And my dad left and took the money, and he sold a building to a couple who he didn't own the building. He made a fake business card.
Sounds like a movie.
Right?
It could be.
So you have a relationship with him?
I do now. When my parents do, I mean, it was always kind of contentious, and we would argue back and forth because he thinks he's a great dad, by the way. Mm-hmm. like there's no qualms about it. He's like, you had a good, and I'm like, with who? Like in what fucking world are you living in? But he's, he is who he is. I mean, he grew up. He had 8 brothers and sisters. A huge family. My grandmother was basically Fagin, so whoever brought her the nicest VCR off of a truck got her affection, and that's it, man. I mean, they all had interesting childhoods, and they, I can't as old as I am now, I can't 100% fault him for being who he is, even though he had examples around him. I'm not excusing him completely, but like it to me, I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, he was raised in Brooklyn at that time, and that's what they did. They got by that way. Mario
Cantone did great stuff about his Italian Boston relatives. You know, he said in a Saturday afternoon they're watching the Patriots. You know, hey, shut up that television! I'm watching Wizard of Oz. But he imitates the uncle too. He can do the biggest macho. We did a movie together that was unconscionable. Lampoon's Dirty Movie.
Yes, I've seen that. My buddy Joe, Joe Starr is in that movie as well.
Isn't that Joe Starr? Who...
He was. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of the comedy special. But you would host the special at Gotham,
right?
New Joke City.
Oh, New Joke City, right? That ran on the local stations. Were you on that?
I was not. No, I'm too. No, Joe was on it. I wish I was on it. Do another one. I'll be on it.
Well, there were 55 of them or something like that.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I had stand-up, sit-down comedy. I used to go down to Orlando to the Disney property. And I had a talk show on USA Network in 85 and 86.
I used to love that, by the way. I used to watch that when I was a kid.
Well, you know, they were trying to find their identity. They're still trying to find their identity, USA Network, but...
I thought you meant the people you were interviewing, and I was like, really? That's interesting.
We ran 2 years, and to give you an idea, we were replaced by the real estate seminar, you know, the Dave Delgado cash flow method, in which Dave shows how the cash flows from your bank account directly to Dave's.
Right.
You buy a building for $1 like your father, you know.
Speaking of a con man, that's how I know John does not fall from the tree, because he would have leaned right into it.
Oh, I know. If I would have, my friend always used to say I got my dad's powers, but I use them for good, because I do like to talk to people, and I do have whatever thing that you're supposed to have in your brain that says do not approach people you don't know is burnt out in mine completely.
Well, you sound very smart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying to. Yeah, I appreciate that.
You're extremely articulate.
Thank you.
And you make sense. Yeah. So go ahead. Well,
the other thing I was going to say too, because you were talking about the interviews and stuff they used to do too. You one of the other specials that you hosted, I have it on VHS.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Is the oh my God, I don't know. It's not evening. It's the Improv's. Like, I don't know if it was their 25th anniversary special. It's you, 15th. You, Paul Rodriguez, Martin Mull, Robin Williams, Billy Crystal, Richard Lewis.
Exactly.
And you hosted the whole thing.
Richard Lewis was in that. Yeah, I guess he was.
Yeah.
Paul Rodriguez. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about that quickly. You know, a lot of my career. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I was involved in very primitive, you know, they called it the Comedy Channel. And I was a consultant. What should they have on the Comedy Channel?
Mm-hmm.
And my HBO special in 75, or for the first one, 5, was the first original programming that wasn't a movie.
Right.
HBO, which was the only network of its kind.
Right.
So wait a minute, I got lost. Oh yeah, you was talking about that show you saw.
Right.
So anyway, I get this. I also did, besides my one-man shows, 9 of them, I did a few other shows for HBO. They asked me to host this thing, and there was a big transmitting disc out on Melrose at the LA Improv, and I'm the host.
Mm-hmm.
And in case it was going to be live Saturday night, but we worked Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and they taped them just in case the live transmission broke down or something.
Wow.
You understand? So we taped Thursday, Friday, and then the regular show Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So I happened to, I introduced and so and so off the teleprompter, and I go, Paul Rodriguez, and I jumped off my stool and I go, like a West Side Story, a boy like that, he killed your brother, a boy like that, he killed everyone, without a beat, stop, a big laugh.
Right.
Rodriguez comes on, does his shtick, and it was, a good show. It was a good rehearsal, and they taped it. Next night, I figured that worked. I'll do it again, Paul Rodriguez. Suddenly, Robin leaps off his stool, goes, a boy like that, he killed your brother. Robin, what are you doing?
That's great.
Talented, but long after I was gone from the East Coast Improv, I thought he was a really lovely, wonderful man. I liked him very much. He had a good heart and a tremendous talent. But the comedians used to complain that he would absorb their idea, put it right in his head and do it.
Right.
Yeah, that was I knew Marty Mull originally from New York. He had a droll sense of humor. He was an industrial artist. He was very good.
Oh, wow.
And poster art, and very talented visual artist.
Nice. Was it when you were coming up? I mean, there weren't really like comedy clubs necessarily, right? You did a lot of jazz clubs, and you were side by side with musicians mostly, like bands, like that kind of thing. Was it weird?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, what I was gonna say, was it so for like when comedy clubs came about? When you started off as a comedian, or when I started up, you got to perform. You don't have your own audience yet, so you have to perform, but it's still a comedy audience. You know what I mean? They're coming to see comedy specifically. When you were doing it, and you were kind of with musicians and stuff like that, was it a different audience? Was it because they were looking to see music too? Or like, what were the audiences like when you were doing those jazz clubs as opposed to a club or a room specifically designed for comedy?
Well, there's only one club of its kind at the time, the Improv.
Okay. Right.
I'd done a year at Second City in Chicago. We did 6 weeks of show in New York. David Steinberg, one of my mates. The other one, my dear friend Fred Willard, who died last year.
Yeah.
I only knew him for 56 years. We reported for work together at Second City in March of '65.
Wow.
Anyway, I heard about this club, the Improv, and I started going down there, and it was very uptown. It was a show business fringe. People in Broadway shows, chorus, or maybe even some people would come and sing, get up, and have a late night meal or so. What happened was television killed nightclubs. People were not going to go out and pay these big money cover charges and everything when they could sit home.
Right.
Ironically, television then, and pay television, HBO, Showtime, A&E at the they created comedy clubs.
Right.
So I looked up. I didn't even know. When I first started, and I got great managers, Rollins and Jaffe, who managed Woody Allen and Dick Cavett and Joan Rivers and Nichols and May, and through Rodney. He's the one that told Jack and Charlie about me. I played, Mr. Kelly's in Chicago. My first gig there, I opened for the great singer, Sarah Vaughan.
Oh, wow.
And she was amazing. 2 weeks. I never missed. The only time since I've ever watched every show of the person I was on the bill with. The Hungry Eye in San Francisco, the Troubadour in LA.
Wow.
The Hungry Eye was known for comedy too, but also music, folk music. Wow. Lenny Bruce had performed at the Hungry Eye, Maud Saul, I performed at the Village Gate with Wes Montgomery, the great jazz guitarist, and on the Living Room on 2nd Avenue with Arthur Prysock, good jazz singer. And one of the greatest thrills of my life, I opened for the Modern Jazz Quartet at the Village Gate. They were like the royalty of jazz to me. They were much bigger in Europe than here. They loved me. They thought it was, I was not too hip for the room, so to speak. I was too hip for the room and Tonight Show and Merv Griffin and all that. And so what it did was force me to write stuff that I certainly was not ashamed of. I was proud of. but would be understandable. There's no point of being a comedian if your audience is, if you took the job, you have to make them laugh.
Yeah.
So a real tough job, 4,000 people outdoors, sponsored by Coca-Cola, 6 Flags over Georgia, with off-duty cops from Georgia with their 3-year-old little girls on their knee.
Wow.
So, quote Lenny Bruce, I couldn't do the fag at the ball game. I always felt I could make people laugh. So I had the supermarket bit, the dentist bit. When I had a child with my wife, that pregnancy and so forth. But there were times on the Tonight Show, Johnny was amazingly generous. He must have been a bitch to be married to, man. He could be tough. I know some inside stuff, but he was so generous with his laughter. When you did your job, Rodney Dangerfield, who was my Yale Drama School for comedy, met improv early on. So I'll tell you, I'm a tough cocksucker, okay?
I love Rodney.
Okay, now you got to come here every night for 3 years to get it right. And he was right. I went every night, and because a lot of the regulars were there every night, I improvised new stuff and wrote more stuff. So it made me, doing the TV shows. But for all his lack of discipline in his personal life, Rodney drank too much, smoked too much, and did too much blow later.
Yeah.
When he had a Tonight Show, man, he started 2 months earlier or more, and he tried them out every night, and he would even say, "I'll tell you, man, is this funny?" One-on-one, he'd ask it. He'd write them on a shirt cardboard, kind you get back from the laundry.
Yeah.
And he called it a necklace. An average necklace on Tonight Show in the panel was 19 jokes or so.
Wow.
And it's funny, when he ran out the necklace, Carson knew it. One time he asked him something that hadn't been rehearsed, and he But he was the most amazing improviser when he had a few belts at the end. He got into a thing with David Fry. You know that name?
Yes, absolutely.
He was one of the best impressionists I ever saw. He did LBJ and Rockefeller. He was a mean little guy, a bad drunk. He was short. He had he had a gorgeous powder blue Buick convertible, but there was a block on the pedal because he was serious. So he got into a shot. Rodney was up there working in the improv, and he hears this stuff from the dark, and they get into an argument, and suddenly David Fry screams out something, and Rodney says, "Don't you raise your voices to me." And it came out of nowhere, man. It was, so really, he was quick on his feet too.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But it was a great joke writer in the early days, before he got really, filthy, and when we didn't have Christmas decorations unless my grandfather sneezed, kind of joke.
Right.
I'll tell you, I worked some tough places, Aldo's, formerly Vinny's, formerly Vito's, formerly Nunzio's. I'll tell you, this Nunzio's was a tough spot. You went up to Nunzio's, you went down 2 steps, physically and socially. I mean, that's Art Buchwald level. That's American humorist. Our streets are unsafe, our schools are unsafe, our parks are unsafe, but under our arms we have complete protection. They're just beautiful, literal. But Johnny was. I'm a creature of the Tonight Show because I didn't want to do sitcoms early on. I was offered the part in MASH opposite Alan Alda that Rogers did, Wayne Rogers.
Wow. Trapper? You were supposed to be Trapper?
Wayne Rogers' part.
Wow.
I was hot as a pistol. I had seen the movie. I loved it. I also read for it. I was in California at the time. I was crazy, man. There's blood and all that. One of my favorite movies of all time. I didn't want to do the sitcom of it. Now, obviously it was a superior series, lasted years. I never had any regrets because I was just too busy being a stand-up, and I didn't want the thing, joke, laugh. I was offered the part of Robin Hood and When Days Were Rotten.
Oh, nice.
Mel Brooks executive produced, not the movie with Richard Lewis, Men in Tights, which was
and Carrie Ellis. That's a great film.
Richard Lewis is the funniest I've ever seen there, and
so good.
No, this was a series that lasted like a season or a half season. Dick Gautier did it. I thought it was juvenile and silly, and it was. Danny Thomas's son they offered me, and then there were a few pilots I did, and I had Madeline Kahn and Peter Boyle as my guest stars. I had like a Monty Python pilot at CBS, and Bud Grant, who ran CBS, said, "Oh, you're ahead of your time." You know, I hate when I hear, because you can do anything now, and of course,
right.
I never, ever, ever had any censorship from HBO for a pisher, not a superstar.
Right.
A complete final cut of my HBO specials. They never interfered, which is amazing. And a lot of money went down. They cost hundreds of thousands. You had to give them beautiful production values. Because you couldn't just do it in an empty room and keep the money.
Yeah.
Although, what's her name did that? She lives across the Hudson there. The chubby, she got a little racial. What's her name?
Oh.
No, I got the wrong one. There were two chubby. One had the sitcom. She got racial. The other one wasn't racial. Sorry.
Oh,
now I need to know who this is.
No. You mean, Roseanne?
Roseanne Racial. The other one. Who's the other one? Got into a feud with Trump.
Oh, Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah.
Rosie O'Donnell pulls one on HBO. Well, more power to her. After they produced the first couple, I produced the others. In other words, they gave me the money. Bob Stein became my producer. He's been with me for 38 years, my accompanist, producer. They give me the money, and I have to give them a show. Well, I get other money. She did it in a tiny club with no sets. I spent thousands on Broadway sets and everything. Anyway, that's another story. But they were. And then I did some sitcoms. I did one with Jason Alexander we shot 10 of them around 9/11. He was funny, man. Yeah, they called it the Seinfeld curse, but that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
His talent was unbelievable. It just that he had his finger in too many pies. He checked every button and everybody's costume, and he wasn't dictatorial.
Right.
He stayed up all night writing with the writers. They had the wrong writers.
He just cared about the work.
Should have had better. When you have his kind of talent, and he's the star, you let him concentrate on what he does best.
Right.
And then more recently, but still 9 years ago, whatever it was, I did one at CBS. That was ABC for Les Moonves after he raped me. No, I'm kidding. It was called The Stones with Judith Light. And,
yes.
There's a kid, the Canadian kid came out of that, your generation. Terrific actor. Funny actor.
I can't think of his name, but I know, I remember.
Jay Baruchel.
Baruchel, yeah. Jay Baruchel is amazing.
He played my son. He was so funny.
That was a good show.
What am I going to do? That was Genji Cohan, who cut her teeth on that.
Mm-hmm.
And her brother, the team that was doing Will and Grace and the other. And then she did Orange is the New Black, and she did.
Right.
Ours was more bland and conventional. She does the real hard stuff, unfortunately.
But at that point, when those shows were working, when they didn't work out, were you happy to just go back to doing stand-up, or you were like, I really want a sitcom?
You want to know the truth? It was in California, both of those.
Okay.
And the last time I had the power to insist on it being done in New York, I did an ABC pilot called Father's Day. We did it right at the Ed Sullivan Theater, which is where Letterman and now Colbert was.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was a series with Jane Curtin and Susan St. James. Forgot the name of it. And, we used their studio to do it. They were going to do it in California, and I told them I won't do it unless they do it in New York. And they did it in New York. Wow. That was the end of my clout. You know what? I'm an honorary Angelino. I've been through two major earthquakes. The major earthquakes, just by coincidence, 73 and 94.
Jesus.
And I just always feel I have lots of friends there. I just feel alien there. I feel lonely there. I had to rent. I rented
Me too.
an apartment. I prefer the East Coast. I live, like 40 minutes from Times Square up the Hudson River Valley. I just gave up my apartment I had for 20 years.
Why?
I wasn't using it. It was expensive.
I could have stayed there. I would have taken it.
An incredible view of Central Park. I could see LaGuardia Tower.
Wow.
Lincoln Center area. It was beautiful. But and it came in handy working in New York, of course.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know. I wrote that one book. I'm very proud of it. It really should. It ends 25 years old.
Yeah, it's a great book.
I've written some articles, and I've written some forwards for other people's books and all. It's the one thing I'm regretting that I'm not doing more of now. But
writing,
I am reading, and I just escape into it. I've never read so much. I always had a book. Now I do it on my iPad, which is how I'm seeing you now.
Uh-huh.
I never thought I would, because of the feeling the book. I have I don't know, several thousand books in my house in 3 different locations. I love books, but here I buy these books like $2 and $3. BookBub. I can make the print bigger if I like.
Oh.
I can press the word, look up and see what it means, because some of the books I'm reading are sort of complex. I love it. I think it's magnificent. And I canceled the actual newspaper of the New York Times. I would never be without the New York Times in my life. But online is sooner, better, more varied. So the old man is, I'm won over by technology, and I'm not great at it. It is amazing. I mean, you got to remember, I couldn't wait till television. We got when I was born in 42, 1842 or 19, for one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 9 when we got a television set in 51.
Right.
Up until then, we'd look at other people's, apartments. We would watch Milton Berle or the big shows. Incidentally, that repeated itself with cable. When the Knicks were hot, 69, 70, not everybody had, the cable where you could see the Knicks every game. And we used to go to people's houses or people would come to my house and so forth. So I've seen change that is unbelievable now. My father was born in 1907. That's 4 years after the Wright brothers flew. My father rode the train with Civil War veterans. I wish I'd asked him more questions. Who has seen more change in their life? I mean, every time you look up the new technology. For example, I have a tremendous collection of CDs.
Oh yeah, same, yeah.
And I love them. My son, who's 38, loves LPs. He loves LPs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a few scenes in a film. What are they calling it? The zoo, I think. Although it's not with animals. The guy is using 35 millimeter film. I haven't made a film in 30 years. I mean, I've been in 40 theatrical features.
Right.
Now maybe 43. They're all digital now. I mean, it used to be that Jerry Lewis, they say, invented a little TV camera on top of a movie camera. It was black and white, so he could see instantaneously what he did. Some directors wouldn't let you see a take. They didn't want you to, because they figure you'll fuss with it and you'll do something different or whatever. But now everything is instantaneous. You shoot. The lighting is easier with digital.
Right.
And obviously the cost is less, because it cost, the guy told me, the producer, I don't know, 17 cents a foot to the film and to develop it. And
good Lord.
So I just, I've been working out with a trainer for 30 years.
Wow.
The guy comes to I used to go to a club. A guy comes to my house 3 times a week. I know what to do without him, but it's like an obligation.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to disappoint the
I'm
other
in
person.
amazing shape for 80. I mean,
You look great, man.
Thank you.
Look exactly the same. Yeah, you know, it's I bought a turntable over the pandemic because I have records, you know, and I do like listening to Bob Dylan and stuff like that. But whenever I would go out on the road, my friend and I, when she would come out on the road with me, we'd find like an old like record store, antique store, and I would collect comedy albums. And I've got yours up. I mean, they're on the wall behind me, but it's all blurred out. You can't really see it. But I've got yours. I've got Jonathan Winters. I got Steve Martin's. I've got George Carlin's. Lenny Bruce is up there. I know Robbins is up there from 78. You know, and it's just but it's so much cooler listening to them like, you know, on a record for some reason. I don't know what it is.
By the way, I went to Billy's opening on Broadway.
Oh, nice.
It's the funniest opening of a show I can remember. The singing is a little suspect, but Billy can conquer that in a second. But the one who plays his wife and brother, Paymer, I remember the only time I ever called Billy because he was doing Mr. Saturday Night in '88, I think. I love that movie. It's flawed, but I love it.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I relate to it. I asked him, I said, the brother is perfect part for me. And he said, you know what? It could be. He cast David Paymer, who was nominated for an Academy Award.
Right.
So he made the right choice. Anyway, it's hilarious. We talked, and I told him enjoy it and endure it. I've been in 7 Broadway shows. 2 closed out of town, but I was in 2 hits for a year. And man, it drives you crazy. Alan Arkin's the only person I ever heard agree with me on that.
Wow.
We did a Zoom show of his work about 4 months ago. It was wonderful to be in touch with him. He said, you know, after the first few months, whatever, everyone has seen it, who's anybody, blah, blah. You got to do the same thing every 8 times.
Right.
Billy is doing 7 times a week. Now, there's nothing like live theater for the audience.
Right.
And it's great. It'll never be replaced. It's different than film, but for the actors, for me anyway, it drove me nuts. Man.
I wouldn't be able to do it either.
You have to find new ways to approach it, find another laugh, and then you start messing up what was set and worked. So there's a famous story. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you have like a preference when you were even starting out? Like, did you want to be just an actor? Did you want to be just a comic? Like, which one do you prefer?
Well, I made my bones, so to speak, as a comedian. You give me a light and like Archimedes, a mic, a light, and a place to stand, and I can make a living.
Right.
It came out of my own mind. It's you know, the most beautiful setup. But being versatile did 2 things: kept me interested and kept me working.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have to wait for the next part like an actor. The life of an actor, unless you're the hottest thing in the business, and even then, I remember being on a plane once with Eddie Murphy 20 years ago. To me, he was a gigantic star.
Yeah.
And I didn't know him. I don't think I watched Saturday Night Live very often. After I was on it a couple of times, I figured, you know, I'm not going to watch it. No. They were the best cast anyway. Anyway, he said, I need a hit, man. You know, I said, what do you mean? You know, what have you done for me lately? They said, you know, he had 2 flops in a row. What is a flop? I don't know, but you know, I didn't make money. So the life of an actor is a pure actor is a little precarious. That is to keep working. So I never had that problem. I did every field of show business.
Right.
I would say the record business was the most kind of dirty, you know, in those days. Neil Bogart was the great record man, the Casablanca Records. I was Buddha, actually. My first 2 albums were Brute Records because George Barry, who owned Fabergé, put up all the money. Neil was so brilliant, he got this guy to put up all this money.
Wow.
So we named it after that terrible cologne, Brute. But we went around in private jets in George Barry's Air Force. And, it was bribery to get, because nobody wanted to play a comedy album. It was, we had NEW
Right.
New York was sort of quote unquote progressive radio, Pete Fornatel, Dennis Elsis, Nightbird. And they played it, and BCN in Boston. But there was an awful lot of, drugs and vacations and cash, and not so much on my thing, but, on the music, which was high pressure. And,
yeah. How did you avoid all that, the drugs and stuff like that? Because you stayed pretty clean, right?
Who said I avoided them?
I don't know. You seem like,
Because I knew how to handle it.
Oh, there you go. That's even better.
I did blow in those days.
Yeah.
One day, I was working so much. If I pull into Cleveland and I was exhausted, a couple of blows would wake me up. But
nice.
It was such a dead end because we intellectualized it, my friends and I, even before I was anything in show business. Well, early on, we read Freud and we knew Arthur Conan Doyle experimented with it, and he was a doctor too. We thought it was psychologically addictive. We were completely wrong. The thing of the rats would rather do the coke and die.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I knew intellectual junkies who were morphine addicts who injected themselves, Bard College types, PhD types, and it was pathetic. And one day I just said, and you always wanted more of cocaine. And one day, I don't know, many, many years ago, I said, you know what? I'm never going to do this again. I have used cannabis for 54 years.
Nice.
I don't like to smoke it anymore because it irritates me. But I always liked a few little nips before going on. What's interesting about Rodney, he could go on at the Improv or go on and do a show and have had 8 drinks. And he would even slur sometimes. And he could be very funny and all that. He would not touch pot before he went on stage.
Wow.
Really?
And he told me about buying it in Times Square in 1940. He told me about this, low-level dealer selling some pot off Times Square. And there's a knock on the door. Who is it? The great one. It was, in those days, he was in a few Warner Brothers movies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Came to buy pot. So it is so much less profound in its effect on behavior than alcohol, which I do not propose to make illegal again.
Right.
But it's one of the, if not the most profound drug of all, in terms of what people will do, behavior, which could be murderous. I don't think anyone ever killed anybody because they smoked pot.
Yeah, no.
And it's time, all these unfortunate people who have done hard time because of it. I'm not sure. Bob and I wrote a song called Medical Marijuana, making fun of it for everything. They're saying, oh, it cures everything.
Right.
No, it intensifies appetite. So someone on chemotherapy, it's a wonderful thing to ingest it or somehow because it gives you an appetite.
Yeah.
Apparently, there are miraculous things reported with epileptic children.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's more than anecdotal. It seems to work. Now,
right.
The other things, I've used CBD cream and all that. I'm just not sure. But it certainly is. And it's not great for children who are growing up.
Right.
For a 9-year-old to go to school and stoned is not a great idea.
Right.
And that's the true thing. But kids grab alcohol. Alcohol is mind-ripping.
Yeah.
And it can be very pleasant, but
yeah, nobody ever committed a hate crime smoking a joint. You know what I mean? Like it's usually alcohol induced.
That's true. It's a very profound, underrated, dangerous drug.
Right.
And, and also, people doing hard time for having had an ounce of pot.
Right.
And, some judge kills someone drunk, they take away his license for 6 months. It's just, part of the culture. What I do and drink and puke, that's okay. But what you do is wrong.
Right.
It's slowly catching on. Unfortunately, the tax money, which one hopes is derived from it, like it is from alcohol, is gobbled up by the fact that legal pot is more expensive than the black market.
Yeah.
Yeah, tremendously.
Unless they do something about that, there's a diminished effect with respect to society.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll ruin it.
The problem with these politicians is they have to keep on being reelected, and they can't think futuristically. I saw a picture in the Times a couple of weeks ago from a drone, about 18 bullet trains in a Chinese maintenance yard. It looked like Buck Rogers, man. We have the Acela train go 65 miles an hour on tracks that were originally laid in the 1890s.
Yeah.
And they don't see that, or the airports and everything. I have not been to the Orient. I have not been to Japan or China. I've eaten Chinese food. I hope that counts as something. My colleague Bob Sun, his son spent 4 years in China. He visited many times. He went, everything is modern, brand new.
Yeah.
And here everything is falling apart.
Yep.
So they don't put the money. They want something. They want to reduce taxes. You have the safest. A prosperous country. I wouldn't say it's the safest country. We have about 39,000 gun deaths a year, suicide, homicide, and accident. Not to mention the woundings. But you live in a nice place. You live in a country that, with at least we hope, maintains some ideals like that. You got to pay for it.
Right.
You want in streets, you got to pay for it. When did taxes become such a dirty word?
I know.
And why did Trump pay no taxes and Elon Musk? And I remember when Romney was running for president, revealed his taxes, he paid 14% because it's investment. Why do I pay 39%? It's just not fair. Like Warren Buffett said, my secretary pays more taxes than I do. So it's very unfair, and it's not likely to be changed in any kind of revolutionary way anytime soon, because there's no one with the vision. All they care about is, low taxes and taking the books out of the library and these kind of irrelevant things that, taxes hurt. I pay a lot of taxes here, but
sure,
you get something back for it. You can't get something for nothing.
Right. It's crazy. Like, I feel like I'm not a conspiracy guy for the most part, but I do feel like somebody, when you're a billionaire, I can't imagine not helping or trying to give that, you're never in your lifetime going to be able to spend any of that money when you're like one of the richest people in the world. The only thing I can think of is they must have somebody come to their door and go, here's what you can do with your money, and here's what you can't do with your money. and it's like, or we'll bump you off or whatever it is, because why wouldn't you just go, oh, how much is it to feed everybody? $6 billion? Take it. Why would you spend $44 billion on Twitter and not try to feed everyone?
Most of the wealthiest do have, programs for giving away a certain amount of money.
Foundations, right?
Ralph Lauren, his name was Ralph Lipschitz. He was from my old neighborhood.
Oh.
And I knew him, vaguely then. He was a stylish kid, prematurely gray at 17. Anyway, hired one of our childhood friends, Oscar Cohen, who is a very famous teacher of the deaf. He's an expert on education of the deaf. And he's a wonderful citizen who's in all kinds of causes. He hired Aki, who was retired, to give away. It started with 10 million, which is pretty small. I think most of them do. They charities, but the need is so enormous, and
Right.
also there is this message that uh, entitlements, like you're entitled to get welfare. You don't want them to abort the child. You want them to be 18 years old and have 5 children who they can't feed.
Yeah.
And yet the corporations pay no taxes. Isn't that welfare? I mean, these are not radical ideas. I don't believe in. I mean, and also we bite our own. We step on our own feet. This stupid thing about defunding the police. Just change what they do. They have to go out on every one of these calls. Everyone in the fucking world has a gun.
Yep. It was a bad slogan. I mean, it was definitely a bad slogan. Like it wasn't even about necessarily defunding the police, but it was a bad slogan. They wanted to just reform. It should have been reform. It should have been, let's figure out where they can be the most useful and the most effective, as opposed to strip them of their finances, which is what it sounded like.
And it comes off though, even pro-life. Who isn't pro-life?
Yeah.
Pro-life,
Yeah.
Always, take these. But one thing is really very significant and depressing is that after the January 6th insurrection, in which dozens of police officers were injured, the police unions are not supporting them.
I know.
It's scary. It is. In fact, there was a cop who assaulted another one. He's going to get a couple of years, I hope.
Yeah. Well, did you see the videos of the cops opening the gates in the beginning? Some of them?
I didn't.
I mean, some of them were inside defending it. Obviously, there was those Capitol police officers who went above and beyond their job, of their job and did what they had to do. But in the very beginning, when there's people coming in, man, there's just video of cops opening the gate and letting these people like get up to the steps and get up there, and you're just like, what the hell is that?
Well, it's this notion that there is a danger of their life being taken away from them. You have to register a bicycle in most towns, but you don't have to register a gun.
Right.
Have your name, and they'll come and get you.
Right.
Meanwhile, in my little town here, Briarcliff, they just put in cameras. You watch a show like 48 Hours, which is actually a high quality show.
Yeah.
Actual homicide investigations, no reenactments. Of course, they're compressed.
Right.
And of course, these morons confess to the murder instead of saying, I want a lawyer, in which the show is over in 4 minutes.
Right.
Said, look, it's for your own good to tell the truth. Okay.
Yeah.
I shot him,
Yeah.
The police, for example, in New York, the biggest police force in the world, well, maybe China has something, but the mayors have always been wary of them. They have their own life. They're sort of a little scary, and they do have the power of life and death because they have guns and all. But it is a tough job. You have to, deal with a lot of low life, and you have to get between couples who are arguing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And something that people don't mention very much, though, is cops, certainly in across the country, not so much here, but there's plenty of guns here as well. You just don't know who has a gun. In England, you can be, or Scotland, even though it's tough, or in Paris, you can be reasonably certain that most people are not armed.
Right.
And the difference is that when you're angry, instead of a punch, if you have a gun and you're drunk too, especially, or impaired, bang, it's over. Gun is made for one thing, to kill. Yes, you can target shoot and all that. And I don't know which comedian, you might know, John, a brilliant routine, or certainly idea, when he said, all right, constitutional right to bear arms. How about a musket? That's what they want then.
Oh, Jim Jeffries.
Who is it?
Jim Jeffries.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and he puts in the powder, and by that time, and I think Chris Rock said, why don't you charge $5,000 for a bullet?
Yes.
Those are beautiful concepts. And, it's the most ubiquitous thing in America. There are, 10 guns for every person. So
yeah. Well, and the amount of, like you said before, though, the amount of shit that cops don't need to be doing that for some reason they're designated to do. So in my backyard by the base of the house, there was just a hole. I had no idea where it came from. I didn't know if an animal dug it, but it was in a really weird spot. Didn't see it, whatever. It would just formed there one day. And so I called the township and I was like, I need somebody to come over to check this out because I don't know if it's a sinkhole. I don't know if my foundation's going to dip. We just had bad weather, all this other crap. They sent over a cop. And it was, and not only that, he was like 17. So I was like, and then he kind of looks at it and he's like, it looks like it's going to be okay to me. And I'm like, oh, well, thanks, Opie. But do you know what a sinkhole looks like? Like, what the fuck? Like, just can I? And I was like, I don't mean any offense to this at all. And I'm like, but can you get whoever you're supposed to get? And he was like, oh, I mean, yeah, I guess I could call the township and tell them that you need somebody over here. And I was like, yes, do that instead of just guessing. But he like tapped the dirt with his foot and he was like, should be all right.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel bad. Nobody needs to send them out, but
they're tasked with too many things, and and they do the training is. It has to be very careful because there's a lot of people that become cops for altruistic reasons, that they want to serve the public. They feel, the new cop is supposed to be more enlightened. I'll tell you, in my life in New York, cop never paid a check at the diner when he went in for a snack, ever. Now, no more of that.
Yep.
Well, cooping. I used to park my car at 79th Riverside, go to my apartment 82nd. Late at night, be a cop car there, both of them asleep inside. I'm sure there's, so I mean, they're better trained, they're more modern and so forth. But there is I was leaving LaGuardia Airport in the indoor parking. And there's a plainclothes car blocking the way. They're looking at some car with interest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting and I'm waiting. I know they're cops, they're plainclothes, and I'm waiting. And after 4 minutes, I gave a little beep. Hey, what's up? And it came at me. And the other one, and then I was a little, I would be more recognizable. I mean, people still recognize me, but I'm in my partner, hey, that's Robert Klein. Who? One guy was it just came at me yelling, and I was a man. How old was I then? 55. I wasn't.
Right.
So they feel a certain kind of privilege, and they have certain kinds of powers.
Well, they're broken down. I mean, they're the whole. I think I don't know. The whole training them now is not the same way. I mean, when my stepdad was a cop, he used to get under people's skin who worked for him because they used to come in young and hot-headed and like, they would get a call to go to somebody's house because, one of my friend's dad was a cop too. And when we were in high school, one of the kids that we went to school with was troubled. He had some mental issues and stuff like that. And he locked himself in his bedroom and his parents, were afraid. So they had the police come over, and it was my friend's dad, who everybody knew and loved, and he knew all the kids. And then this new kid, and the new kid was like looking to kick the door in and like getting all hot-headed, getting all up and whatever. And my friend's dad was like, we know these, like, there's no reason to do that. But I feel like there's more of those guys now than there is the level-headed, like, hey, I know everybody in town by name. They know me. We don't need to do this. Like, it's
New Jersey state cops have beautiful, scary, Nazi-like uniforms. They're gorgeous.
I know, they really do.
As a matter of fact, Norman, who was the Operation Desert Storm, his father.
Oh yeah,
Schwarzkopf.
Schwarzkopf's father was the head of the New Jersey State Police at the time of the Lindbergh kidnapping.
Oh.
And he said, "Oh, the guy's absolutely guilty," and so forth. No, I mean, they have extraordinary power. But you know what? There was a book about an elite New York homicide squad written by Barbara Gelb. Author and Gelb was one of the biggies at the New York Times. And they both were Eugene O'Neill scholars. They're both gone now. Their son runs the Metropolitan Opera, and they were dear friends. She was allowed to go along with this squad of special homicide squad. Like when a kid was found decapitated on a rooftop in Harlem, these were high-profile cases, they would take them up. Most of them got divorced. Most of them had problems. And Jerry, I can't remember his last name, an Irish name. He's a wonderful man. He was head of the squad. He later became head of security at the Javits Center. And we were walking into a place, and we were going to all have dinner. And someone came up to me very rudely or hostilely or whatever it was. And I got angry for a second. I'm not a fighter, you know. And he just grabbed my arm, and he just had seen so much violence in his life that he hated it. And he knows when to tamp things down, you know. So there are good cops and bad cops. I think it is essentially a noble profession. But some people's motives for going into that line of work have to be inspected. They like power, like stuff. You know what, fellas? It's past my bedtime.
Yeah, no, I know. I've got
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
I'll let Tom speak more. Tom.
Yes.
That's enough.
Mike.
All right, Tom.
We appreciate you coming out with us tonight, but I know John has to ask. Oh, no, I'm sorry. John has to ask you the big three questions, but I know a lot of our fans had a couple of things that they wanted to chime in with.
Go ahead.
So just wanted to try and field some of those before John gives you the big three.
I'm going to hear their questions?
Yes.
Yeah, we could actually bring them up on our screen. So let me pull back because I remember I promised Lindsay we would get this one up. Sorry. There was a lot of questions. I'm actually trying to filter right through them. 1 second.
Now you embarrassed me. There were no questions, right?
No, there are a ton of questions. I'm not even going to lie.
There are a lot of questions, yeah.
So Lindsay N was asking, was it fun working with the Monty Python crew, and who is your favorite Python?
Oh, that was a wonderful night. That was the night, the next morning was the earthquake in 94.
Oh, wow.
No. I gave an award to Cleese, the Jack Oakey Award. I think it was the only Jack Oakey Award of all time. The 4 seasons, first and last. And then the next morning, we're all cowering in the dining area with candlelight. And he walks in, Cleese walks in with the newspapers under his arm. Well, that was interesting. I wanted to kill him. That was a wonderful HBO special, the Aspen Comedy Festival. And I wish they would have filmed the night before when we all got together for the meeting, because they didn't see each other that often. And they really were genuinely glad to see each other. And then the conversation came up about who was the one that died? Graham, right?
Yeah.
The one who was a physician.
Yeah.
And we concocted this bit where we would his ashes would spill, because they had an urn supposedly with his ashes in it. His ashes had actually been distributed, I think, at the Hollywood Bowl or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the one who had Barbara Wawa, he died. He was. They all were lovely people, but
right.
What was his name? He said, well, his parents. His parents might be there. Cleese said, "Fuck his parents." He expressed. He had the same first name as the American. I did well on names and nouns, didn't I?
Yeah. It happens. It happens every episode. So it's Michael Palin, maybe?
No, I love Palin.
Palin's good.
I like them all.
Yeah.
All of them. I think that the American is the visual one, and his rendition of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was horrible because he missed the essence of Hunter Thompson's book.
Oh, Terry Jones.
Terry Jones was the Wawa, right?
Right.
And Terry Gilliam, the American.
Terry Gilliam, yeah.
And we went on stage the next day, and I have a clipboard, and I don't want to let them mix it up. And what happened is Terry Gilliam was supposed to knock over the urn, and he forgot. So when he did, it came as a big surprise, and everyone was like a jet pilot with their reaction. Boom! I got a broom, and we're sweeping up his ashes. It was hilarious. It was better because everyone forgot he was supposed to do it.
Right.
Did it? It took us by surprise. Cleese had headaches. We were 6,500 feet altitude. He was a little cranky with his headaches. But I spent time with him at the Four Seasons that time when he was honored and that thing. And
Yeah.
they were all on my, well, Palin and was on my radio show and my television. No, my radio show twice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
And a wonderful man, a gentle and very intelligent. It was a great thing. And we were on the same record label. They were Buddha, and
Okay.
I couldn't make head nor tails of it listening to some of the LP now for something completely different. But when I saw the film,
Yeah.
oh God, we showed it in someone's apartment in Boston. Can't remember his name. He was at WBCN, and Nancy Jones. Have you seen Gilded Age?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Just, it's beautifully written. It's a soap opera.
So good.
Simon Jones, who plays the butler, his wife, late wife, was the promoter. She actually brought the Beatles to America on Buddha Records, and I love them from the start. They're old men now, like me. They're my contemporaries.
Yeah, we had the pleasure to hang out with John Cleese. Gentleman. Had a million stories. Such a gentleman.
Yeah, I just watched Fish Called Wanda. I hadn't seen it in years.
Oh, the best.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
Faulty Tower. He claims the funniest thing he ever did. I'm not sure that's true, but it's worth watching. It's fun.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But they went on and they kept on making money. Pasternak told me that he tours a lot and he answers questions. They show shows, so he makes a living because he needs to, because he had 3 wives.
Yes. Yeah.
That is the truth.
The second one her name was Alice Faye. She was a woman from Dallas. She was a psychologist.
Yep.
She was with him with the earthquake. I said, "You had a psychologist with you." I had no one. Cowering in my room on the 11th floor of the Four Seasons. It's going back and forth. What else do you have to ask me?
Well, our good friend Mind Dog from Mind Dog TV says I can't stop my leg. Do you have any advice?
I can't stop my leg. I can't stop my leg now. You can't see my leg, but it's moving. I had hoped that restless leg syndrome, which is not funny, people legs, would use my song, but God damn it, they didn't. That happened one night at the Improv. There was a wonderful pianist named Ray Johnson, who Bette Midler certainly owes a debt of gratitude to. He played behind her every night for nothing for 2 years.
Wow.
And he was a wonderful, from Louisville, a great jazz pianist and blues. And I'm playing, I'm just, my leg is moving and I'm going, and I'm playing blues in a little faster tempo than that. And like the improviser I am, post Second City, what came into my head after playing many bars of the harmonica, the people are with it, I go, I can't stop my leg. And it was an explosive laugh because my leg was moving. So, part of the thing. And it's for an intelligent comedian, it's a stupid joke, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's how Marshall Fine named the movie, the documentary about me, Robert Klein Still Can't Stop His Leg, because I did it in different forms in every one of the 9 HBO specials, a Latino, classical, Broadway version. And it's sort of a hook. Rodney's was no respect. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Incredible.
And then one more. I'm just going to squeak in here before John gets his questions. But Alan, one of our fans, wanted us to show you this picture. He said it's from 1979 at Cushers in the Catskills from when you were performing there.
Looks like he's a bartender or waiter.
Yeah.
Doesn't it look like a uniform?
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's incredible.
Right? Many years.
I was
for like half a second, I thought it was you and Captain Kangaroo. I was like, holy shit. I used to watch that guy. when I was a kid.
You know, it's amazing. I had Lauren Bacall on my show, my television show,
Wow.
and she said, you know, people remember me. I was 19 years old. I was a model and everything. I have a life after that. People who have been in movies and television, there is a sequential record of my life. They still show somebody texted me the other day, one of my Ed Sullivan appearances, I did 6 of them, was on my Johnny Carson stuff. It's on YouTube. They show it on some station. And you see, everyone has photos of themselves throughout their lives, but there's nothing like seeing yourself in these movies and these television shows getting older and older and how you looked, what you said.
Right.
It's hard for me to look at the old work. You know, I'm proud of it most of the time, but it's not something that compels me to look at it. And then when I do, I say, you know what? I heard Charlie Chaplin did this, an old man. They'd show him his old films, especially those early silent ones or shorts. He said, he's good. He's good. Sometimes I look and I say, boy, that was good.
Yeah.
Or I look and I say, oh, if I could have just changed that. But you know, I have no regrets. It was so much, what a wonderful, fun time I've had, basically. I never went anywhere when I was a kid, and I've been to every state but 3, Montana, South Dakota, and Wyoming, and I'm not sure I want to go. You know, I met wonderful people. I performed for 4 presidents.
Nice.
Wow.
And my folks lived to see me make a movie with Barbara Streisand. And they sat next to President Carter. And we got a standing ovation. And President Carter went up on the platform to see what a standing ovation looked like. My friend Jonathan Alter, who I'm having dinner with, lunch Thursday, is a journalist and writer, historian, wrote a fabulous book about Carter. It's long. I got chest damage from it on my chest. But man, what interesting president.
Wow.
In many ways.
I'd love to read that. I love reading stuff like that.
A lot of things you'll see how he wanted to do the right thing. He took his Christianity, and still does, seriously. Which all these people, if Jesus came back now, I'd puke seeing these people. Christmas cards with the whole family holding guns.
Right.
I mean, this Carter has devoted himself to service, with building houses and all that. He was not fit. You know, he was not cut out for the wrangling of Washington. He was not a good politician once he got to Washington.
Right.
In many ways, but it was really interesting. But Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt are standout in American history. Yes, Washington had slaves, but he left and he gave them up when he died to his wife, who freed them upon her. The point is that he had total power, and he gave it up, which no one had ever done in history. And he set the kind of the rules of the game, and he was extremely important. Lincoln, for obvious reasons, one of the great tragedies of American history, that he was assassinated by these pigs.
Yeah.
He was a depressive, and yet he kept it going. And
I love the movie that Spielberg did.
Me too.
With Daniel Day-Lewis.
3rd time. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Day-Lewis was a good.
In spite of knowing the ending. I don't know why I think it's going to change, but every time I watch it, I'm like, come on. It's got to pull through.
It's heartbreaking because it really affected things.
Yeah.
Because Andrew Johnson was an idiot and a racist and his successor. And, you know, Harry Truman comes up in that because when Roosevelt died, who was this Harry Truman? He's a pisher from Missouri. He's a hack politician. And he became a very, very good president in a difficult time. And I put him in maybe certainly the top 10, but even better than that. He proved to be reliable and honest And I appreciate that. What are your 3 questions?
My 3 questions. So the first
Is it
question is, if you could,
well, life era, are we different than?
if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what would be the piece of advice you would give yourself that would help you today? Today being a Tuesday. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter what day, but.
Gee, I guess not. Maybe not take things for granted so much. When things were coming my way like crazy, I always wanted to retreat a little and have quiet time. And I lacked certain. I mean, I was ambitious, but I think I would have been a little more ambitious in that formative time. I would have liked to do better parts in movies, but I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I just maybe not take it for granted so much. Enjoy it.
That. Second question is, what had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
What? Say that again.
What had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
Well, it was courageous of sort to not. I wanted to be a doctor all my life. I went to college pre-med, and it was a disaster. I had to open my mind. I went out for the college plays, and I found out I was good, and they thought I was good. So I think what had to end was this conventional thinking. I have to go to medical school or law school, or like everyone else I knew did. And these 2 professors cornered my father after my junior year. And they said, Mr. Klein, he's very talented. We'd like him to go to Yale graduate school. My father said, Yale? To be an actor? Did Eddie Cantor go to Yale? Cantor was. So corny. I cringe when I see Al Jolson in blackface,
Right.
Oh my God. So he had a point, but yet going to graduate school at Yale immersed me. In other words, all my friends are going to medical school, a few to dental school, law school. I'm going to drama school, and they mean business there. And this is what I've chosen to do. And so I had to leave behind, to fit your question, more conventional thinking. You have to have a successful career. You need fire in your belly. You need talent. Notice I put it second. And you need luck or good fortune and coincidence.
Right.
There's a lot of very talented mailmen out there, but they don't have my father had the talent of a professional comedian. Never even occurred to him to do it.
Right. Yeah, that's always kind of heartbreaking. And the third question is kind of goofy. It ties in with the show. If this was a genuine dystopia, and I'm talking last day on the planet for everybody,
zombies, comets, aliens, everything,
the whole thing. How would you want to go out? What would be your epic death?
The easiest way. A lot of I would not hang around for that. I would want to go quickly. All right?
Okay.
I don't own a gun. I don't ever intend to own a gun. I have a BB gun.
Oh, there you go.
Picture of Hitler that I had in one of my HBO special, my NBC specials. I did 2 in '81 for NBC, and I target practiced at a thing of Hitler with my BB gun. You know what? There are lots of television shows about. Even the Smithsonian has one about what would happen to buildings and everything.
Yeah.
Nothing left. I'll just say this one thing. I was brought up in an era, and I talked about it in the first album, Child of the 50s. We had to go under the desks. We had air raid drills. That stuff was taken seriously ever since the Russians exploded a thermonuclear weapon in '49, or a nuclear weapon. So they had it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's no more conventional. It's catastrophic because it was already 10 times Hiroshima. Now it's 1,000 times Hiroshima, the kind of lethality these weapons have. This was MAD, mutual assured destruction, and it's worked so far. You know
Right.
that if you do it, you do it.
Yeah.
Now, the danger has never left. It's
Right.
only the attitude about the danger. We don't have drills anymore. We don't hide. I mean, some people do, survivalists. You know, they find food in these places from civil defense in the 50s. Somebody opened a can of beans and they're still edible. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
nobody does that anymore. And yet the danger is still there, very much there. And only 6 countries have been added, including unstable ones like North Korea, Pakistan.
Right.
That doctor, what's his name? He died last year. He was an
Yeah.
enemy of humanity. He gave secrets to the North Koreans. And so the Indians, Pakistanis, North Koreans, Russians, Chinese, French, English, Israel, US.
Yeah.
I mean, someone gets a little cranky.
And that's it.
The danger is there. So it's all over. If there's an nuclear exchange, the world wouldn't be worth living in.
Right.
It would take a long time. So the fact that Putin is actually bringing up nuclear thing is kind of a blackmail idea. Oh, he's so crazy, he's going to do it. You know.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I doubt it, but you know.
Yeah.
They
say he's sick, so he doesn't care. That's why he's going to do it.
Well, there are nuclear submarines on both sides, on all sides. No one knows where they are.
Right.
So they're almost undetectable. And they have, in one submarine, 1,000 times the lethality of Hiroshima or more. We have underground silos. We have cruise missiles. And they do too. So it would seem that everyone will keep their minds because they don't want to see the world. I wouldn't say the world will end, but it could be close. Yeah. And your dystopia will come true. I hope it does.
I hope it doesn't either, but I mean, it depends if they.
You know what? No podcasts.
Exactly. You know, with my luck,
and the podcast.
Yeah. with my luck, the world would end, and then they'd make us go to series. They'd be like, you know what? We're going to give you that contract. You've got 1 day left.
I've had dreams about it, and I wrote a bit about it. Children, I want no talking during a nuclear holocaust. I want an orderly nuclear holocaust. And then they had sirens every day at noon, testing them. And I thought, what if the Russians bombed at noon? We wouldn't. I'm serious. And they're just a terrible sound.
Right.
Find one of footage of the war, which the Brits went through very courageously.
Oh, yeah.
The Blitz. And of course, Europe was decimated by bombs and all that. And in 2022, in Europe, one neighbor is, and they look alike, they speak the same language, is destroying these. Looks like the Grand Conquest. They're apartment buildings, just leveling the place. What do they expect if they took it over?
Yeah,
they're responsible for it. What do they? Yeah. They don't have that kind of money. You know?
Exactly. They don't. It's insane. It's not even worth it at the end of that kind of shit.
Terrible. It's just brute force. They did it in Syria. And people, well, they're Syrians.
Yeah, they didn't give a shit.
There is a little bit of racism involved. Well, they're Middle Eastern, they're primitive. They did it in Chechnya, which is a mysterious place. They just carpet bombed and, but to do it in this built up society.
Right.
You may notice that the head of Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, very brave man, is a comedian. Comedians rule, literally.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
The fact that he's a Jew is amazing too. Ukraine was notoriously anti-Semitic in the Second World War and its previous history. So here it's even becoming an enlightened place with less corruption. The only corruption was Trump trying to corrupt it. And why can't the Democrats make hay out of the fact that President Trump sided with Putin, thinks he's great?
You would think that would be an easy thing to do.
Tucker Carlson thinks Orban and thinks, well, it's none of our business. That's what's happening in America now. Very bad. Boys, this
Yes.
has been so
I
Tom talk much.
I know. You know what I do have to say before you go? Check you out in Monmouth Beach coming up soon. The date is coming up, right? I'll make sure we want to plug that before you go.
Oh, I have, let's see, the 18th and the 25th of June. One is Monmouth
University. Yep.
I delivered commencement there. I'm a doctor 3 times. I have 3 doctorates, which means absolutely nothing. I was very proud, of course, that they used me. Let's see, calendar June. The 18th is Riverhead, Long Island, the Suffolk Theater, which is a lovely theater. It's way out in Long Island. And the 25th is Monmouth.
Yes. Can't wait.
So
We're going to see you on the 25th.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm going to be fresh. I certainly haven't done it for a while. I presented an award at the New York Film Critics Circle. And most of the people were, Cumberbatch and all, and they were videotaping from Europe.
Oh.
So I got up there to give an award to Marshall Fine, who actually directed the film about me, the documentary, but also was the treasurer and the chairman of the New York Film Critics Circle for many years. Retired. They're giving him So I got up there and I said, "I'm so sorry I couldn't be with you, but I'm in a hotel room in Paris shooting a movie about Charles de Gaulle's sister." I did 5 or 6 minutes. It felt so good. I even got a laugh out of Lady Gaga.
Oh, nice.
About a day in her acceptance speech, she went on and on.
Yeah.
But I saw it in Stars Born, which is really good.
Oh, yeah, she was great in that. That was a good remake.
Hey, John, you'll like this. She said, because Marty Scorsese was there, he gave an award to the woman director of the Cumberbatch film. And she said, "I'm so happy as an Italian American," and she used some Italian word. I grew up seeing movies about people, Italian families who looked like me, and every Italian movie was a mafia murder movie. The people who looked like me, spoke like me.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
They were good movies.
Yeah.
We could get into a whole discussion about that, but The Godfather 1 and 2 were masterpieces. And
oh yeah,
indeed.
The Sopranos I appreciated because it showed it was ethically sound. Every time we were with Tony because he's the star, right? So a villain can be interesting, like Iago in Othello. I mean, he's an interesting character. You almost understand his motives. He's jealous and he power. So when he promises his wife, "No, I won't fool around anymore," and the next thing he's stooping some secretary or murdered and stole. There was a scene with the old Jewish psychiatrist and Mrs. Soprano. Edie Falco goes to see him. And the old man, the actor, by the way, never saw himself. He died before it aired at a Queens bus stop. He had a voice like this. And he said, "You should leave. Take your children and leave." She said, "Are you Jewish?" He said, "What does that have to do with it?" She said, "Well, we Catholics take our marriages very seriously." And then he said, "Leave." He said, you're what's the word? You're partly responsible. You take that stolen jewelry, whatever.
Right.
Leave.
Yeah.
And it just reminded you of who these interesting people that you watched every week really were.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it reminded you that how horrible they were. That didn't make it interesting or the writing less good. But anyway, after Joe Colombo's Italian American festival, whatever, when he got shot, that was such an embarrassment. I think people no longer hear an Italian name, and automatically think that there's something shady, except for John Poveromo. That name immediately makes me think, hey, fuck, you know. Anyway, we're little Jewish boys, you know, we get ours too. And Family Guy, the little red-headed schmuck, the Jew was always looking.
Yeah.
Listen, boys, this has been so great.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Hey, I like your look there. You know, I wish I could see a little better. The beard and the outfit, but you're really sweet, both of you.
Thank
You're
you.
nice
We
guys.
appreciate
You're nice
you.
boys. And I enjoyed my stay on your show.
Thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
doing it, man. We appreciate it.
All right.
And we'll
Yep,
definitely
see you
come
on the
see you when you're in
25th.
Jersey.
Yep.
All
Have
right.
a great one.
Take care,
Thanks.
man. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Dystopia tonight.